listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is the Awards Watch Podcast, episode 309, and it is an editors only Oscar talk podcast here on this Monday morning, when we are releasing this. We are recording this just a little bit early because everybody's doing so many things right now. You got the New York Film Festival going on, Mill Valley's just beginning, and The Rock is tanking at the box office, and we are going to talk about it all. Joining me today is our associate editor, Sophia Ciminello.
Hi, guys.
And joining us is the lady that let Chloe Sevigny borrow her wig for After the Hunt, is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Box office queen, Erik Anderson is what I will take. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about the box office for both Smashing Machine, One Battle After Another, and everything else that's going on. We will also be talking about the screenplay categories here in the back half of the episode. But of course, up first, we will be giving our thoughts about The Smashing Machine, which is the film that is releasing this weekend, coming off the heels of a great film coming out last week in One Battle After Another, and a pretty interesting box office situation for that. We have The Smashing Machine, which we all saw. I saw at TIFF. I know that Sophia and Erik, you guys saw this just last week or week before in IMAX down in Lincoln Center. And it was a memorable experience, that is for sure. The film is directed by Benny Safdie. It stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt. It is about Mark Kerr. Who Mark Kerr is, we will maybe be able to explain that today and talk about that. But it is obviously about Mark Kerr, who was a former UFC fighter before the UFC got big. That's the best way to describe it, I think. And it is based off of a documentary that Safdie really, really, really loved, and kind of took that to heart. He won, is it the Silver Lion at for Best Director
yes.
at Venice from good old Alexander Payne, because those winners have just been on point and dynamite. Anyway, Erik, I'm going to throw it to you first here today, and I want your thoughts on The Smashing Machine, this movie that we were all eagerly anticipating and we were all looking forward to. And Erik, your quick thoughts on Smashing Machine and what you thought when you got out of the film. You saw it in IMAX, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct. Ryan, did you know that his name is Mark Kerr? Because it's despite saying it 35 times during the movie, they remind us at the end his name is Mark Kerr,
It was kind of giving.
so I was really glad for that.
It was kind of giving Fight Club energy, like by the
It
end.
was.
You know,
It really, really was.
I think we talked about that. It was so weird.
There was definitely some bitch tits going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did feel a little Fight Clubby. Let's see. My very short version of this is I hated this movie. I thought it was terrible. I stylistically, I liked the idea of it. Docudrama style kind of worked and was cool, but it was pretty meaningless because the story inside of that was so completely just boilerplate, like boxer and crazy girlfriend, and the lowest version of it. I know that Dwayne Johnson really wants to be a serious actor now. He's got all of these things lined up to sort of fake his way through it. But every time he cried in the movie, he would bury his face in his hands. So that's always a big red flag. I'm like, why? Why are you hiding your face? Is it because you can't cry?
Is it
I don't
because you
know.
don't know the
It's
song during the lip sync? You know what I mean?
it's something, yeah, it's basic like that. We'd like to see your face, Valentina. So, and I mean, the more or less I can say about Emily Blunt, the better, probably. It's easily the worst performance of her career. It is an exact copy replica of Heidi Gardner's SNL sketch of every girlfriend in a boxing movie. It is absolutely atrocious. And my short version review of it on Letterboxd was it's a hair and nails performance, and that's it. There's nothing more.
That's very, very fair and very tame thoughts from you, Erik. I'm very glad that you just gave us the bare bones of that right there. Sophia, your
Yeah.
thoughts on Smash Machine? Maybe more or less the same.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna really go for it in the same way. I'm gonna maybe put in as much effort as Emily Blunt did into this performance
That's
here
very fair.
instead.
That's very fair.
But what I'll say about it is that I think I was, looking forward to this only because I was curious to see what Benny Safdie really could do as a director. And I didn't know much about Mark Kerr, but after watching this movie, I don't really think there is enough really to make a film about his life, at least not that Safdie is interested in. I haven't seen a movie that has been this disinterested in its characters in a while. I don't really think it really cares about its characters, and that was one of the problems that I had with it. I also think the filming, the docudrama style, I think invested in the aesthetics, but ultimately it felt very empty, especially in the scenes in the ring. The choices made with the camera aren't very engaging and actually kind of distances you, I think, from the fights, and I expected that to feel a little bit more visceral. So I was surprised at just how honestly dull of a watch this was. Typically, sports films or, biopics about sports figures are at least engaging and you can get swept up in the drama of it. And I just was not invested really at all. There are some pretty unintentionally funny lines, like when he says, "My girlfriend likes colors." I thought that was really funny. There are also the ending, I mean, just as pure unintentional comedy. I think I'm gonna go back to my letterboxed mutual. I don't remember who it was at the moment, but who said that this was Marriage Story directed by Tommy Wiseau, because that is how it feels sometimes.
Yeah, it is a movie that so I saw this at TIFF unlike you guys, and I saw this at like 9:30 in the morning, which is the worst time to watch this movie because it really is a bummer to start your day. And and luckily I saw some other films that day that helped. I think that this movie is strange and uninteresting for a movie that is marketed as this sort of rah sports movie, like you're mentioning, Sophia. This is a movie where it's very the way that Benny Safdie directs it, which is he clearly has like this homage to and love and fascination of that documentary. But when you shoot a documentary, you can be far away or you can have the camera off in the distance because you're trying not to invade into the life or the world of this person. In a film like this, you need to be close. You need to feel the intimacy of these two people. You need to feel the intimacy of the ring and the connection here. Like I was thinking a lot of Gavin O'Connor's Warrior is a perfect example of a film in the UFC world that ties emotion and character and everything in with really visceral action scenes inside the octagon. And that movie is fantastic. This movie is the complete opposite of that. It's shot very distant and I think it's a very cold film to make in terms of trying to connect with these characters. And then you're trying to also get a really good performance on the screen from Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Now, I will not be as harsh as Erik on The Rock. I think he's for the first time in his career trying to do something other than just be The Rock. I think he's trying to embody Mark Kerr the best he can. I think the screenplay is just absolutely weak. I think the direction of it then also fades away from even being able to attempt to capture a performance that's, you know, buzzworthy or considerations for Johnson in general. And then, yes, Emily Blunt is maybe the worst character of the year. I think we're going to have to do a podcast down the road when we're doing best of the year. We're going to have to talk about worst written characters of the year because there have been some candidates this year, and she is definitely one of them. And the problem with this movie is it does it kind of does what Springsteen does, where it drops you in the middle of an era or towards the end of Mark Kerr's career. And yet I don't know anything about Mark Kerr. Most people will not know anything about Mark Kerr. And so you're sitting there kind of like, wait, what is this relationship? What does it mean? Why do they hate each other? Why are they already at this point and and even in the moments that are about their love story or whatever, it's silly shit like going on a carnival and oh, I can't go, my tummy hurts, and shit like that. It's just it's such a weird movie, and it makes total sense why Alexander Payne would pick this as a director winner because of all the films that we've mostly seen out of Venice. It's the most standard basic one, and I will say it made me more anticipated for Marty Supreme to see what Josh can bring to the table because this might be the Ethan Cohen of the Safdie brothers in a lot of ways. And
I forgot how many times he says tummy in
tummy is
this,
a big word.
and
Yeah, it's a
that
trigger word.
just like triggered me.
Yeah,
And how often she says baby.
yeah. It's
Every
Baby,
sentence,
baby,
baby.
baby.
tummy. Yeah, it's a lot. And you know, and also it's just like the weird music choices too. Like for a movie that's set in like the 90s to have a lot of late 70s, early 80s stuff. Like I like the choices of the songs, but they don't fit the world in which we are in. And so it just felt like a movie that maybe was in his head and just should have stayed there in a lot of ways. And I think that that's a great segment to then the audience reactions this weekend. We got the cinema score, which we're coming off of a really great weekend of cinema scores last weekend. With what was that movie with Kristen Wiig? The
Gabby's Dollhouse.
Yeah, that got an A plus,
Hmm.
and then One Battle After Another got a great A for the cinema score there, and we talked about that on the Director Watch episode last week. But then this got a B minus. It is tracking to make 6 to 7, maybe even less than that, probably at the box office. That will be a bomb for this thing. And so I want to get you guys' thoughts on the box office for this and this weekend, because this weekend is being dominated by a certain lackluster pop star album that is being released. And I'm curious about that because, and Sophia, we'll get this over to you. It's kind of affecting all these other films, and it's not just her. There's another re-release this week that's affecting Smashing Machine and affecting One Battle After Another. I'm kind of curious about your thoughts for this box office weekend and what it might all mean.
Yeah, well, I think Taylor Swift, Life of a Showgirl, the music video party with the clips, that's really, I mean, it's dominating the box office. It's not surprising. Her fans will give her money for anything. I mean, she'll release 6 variants of one album and they'll want to collect them all no matter what it sounds like. And we know, I
Like
mean,
Infinity Stones,
she is
right?
the chief capitalist. When I think of capitalism, I think of Taylor Swift. It's impossible to separate them. And it's hard because, I think this album, I'll just say, I did listen to it once just to see what it sounded like. And it was the first time, really, actually, in listening to a Taylor Swift album that I had to skip before getting to the bridge in certain pop songs because it was just really tough. I think the first song is catchy enough, but then it really dips and declines and gets pretty cringy very fast. Um,
Team Charlie, by the way.
Team Charlie always,
Okay, yeah,
stream brat.
there you go.
But I think that what she did really was she took over so many screens. I mean, if you look at the show times for this, it was every single hour. She was kicking one battle out. Obviously, it had an even bigger effect, I think, on the Smashing Machine. And then Avatar: The Way of Water had a re-release this weekend, which took premium formats and IMAX screenings away from it. But I will say that it is still looking like One Battle is heading to 100 million worldwide, which is a great benchmark and milestone for that movie. And the fact that it still topped The Smashing Machine, which I mean, the Rock being in this movie, I think at one point I thought could be a draw, but the one thing about the showgirl thing is that it's only 3 days. I mean, I could see her making an announcement and saying, "Surprise, my fans love this. Here's another week," and just hurting movie theater workers everywhere, like she did with her concert tour when she surprised announced an extra date. But I think that because the music videos are going to be out on YouTube and all of this is being recorded from the theater, I think it is going to stick to that small window, and then she'll have something else up her sleeve to make more money later on. Um, but I think from there it's hard because then the IMAX screenings will go to Tron Ares.
Hmm.
But I think One Battle After Another is proving that it has legs. Smashing Machine, though, is a huge disappointment.
Yeah, Eric, I wanted to talk to you about One Battle After Another. Last time we talked here on the show, we were trying to figure out what it's going to be at the box office. And at the time of recording, it's sitting at 72 million worldwide, which is great. It's got a good split between the two. 55% of that international, 44% of that is here domestically. By this weekend, it should most likely pass $100 million worldwide. And it also should then be the highest grossing film of PTA's career. I'm curious from your perspective, like listening to Sophia talk there, uh, what your thoughts are about One Battle now at the box office. And also, too, I do want to highlight the fact that One Battle saw a massive surge on Tuesday at the 50% or like the discount
Hmm.
ticket day. And that's when all the olds came back out. And I do still think that there's a possibility that this movie is going to get re-released throughout the season. We'll get this back in large formats, as it goes on. But Eric, I was curious about your thoughts about One Battle in the box office and where it stands right now.
Well, I mean, you bring up that Tuesday, and I think it's actually really important because in the cacophony of all of the other box office stuff that's happening, Taylor Swift and the Avatar re-releases, and we're actually seeing these retrospective re-releases doing very well. Jaws and Toy Story were both in the top 10 just a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
in basically unaltered versions, just restored and looking great. So there's a profitability there in that kind of bringing things back. But I think almost any time it's really those midweek numbers that tell the real story. And while while one of the main stories before it came out was, hey, see it in all of these different versions in formats. And those are really exclusive to a very few number of cities. And while the ticket prices for those are higher, um, the bread and butter is always going to be in just like a regular theater. So even without the IMAX and without these specialized screening places, the real box office is going to come from just a regular, digital print theater in a multiplex. And so, yeah, seeing that Tuesday bump kind of really tells me that there are legs to this movie that are going to kind of just keep trudging along, even while other things might kind of, take over in the number one spot. And I think that benefits One Battle immensely. It's also too, the narrative that Warner Brothers can tell of this, I think is going to be really crucial. But I think the marketing they've already done with this is so smart. And the lead up, I think people were saying was, Warner Brothers is having this incredible streak of $40 million openers. They've made 4 billion at the box office and it's only September. So if you look at it purely in kind of corporate and almost retail terms, One Battle is a loss leader and one that can be completely afforded and allowed
Hmm.
because everything else really stepped up to the plate. So the idea and the story that you know whatever the box office action or the budget actually is for One Battle, because it's been between 130 and 150, is going to matter a whole lot less than I think competitors want it to. And it's just doing very well.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, Sophia, you want to go?
Oh, I was just gonna the only thing I was gonna add to that really about Warner Brothers is, because this is coming really late for them in this streak of really big hits and that $40 million number of opening weekend that we kept talking about, is that what it does instead is because it's such a critical success and audience hit, with Paul Thomas Anderson behind it, it's also signaling Warner Brothers is actually an unlikely home, but a good one for filmmakers who want to tell their original stories. He fits into that part of the narrative in a really strong way, especially when we think about the future for awards and how long people will be talking about it.
No, I totally agree with both of you. I think that this is one where the box office success of Sinners, Superman, um, Final Destination, Weapons, and the film that I think actually really helps one battle after another is a movie that just came out, which was The Conjuring: The Last Rites. That movie made $446 million worldwide on a $55 million budget. Nobody saw that coming. So, as much of this movie can make up from its budget, whatever it is, I think it's going to be probably when it's all said and done in that Killers of the Flower Moon kind of territory. I think One Battle After Another is going to do extremely well on VOD. We won't know the numbers on that, but I think it'll do really well because people will be able to watch that at home. To Sophia's point, and it's going to be an awards player. It's going to be a movie in the conversation for Best Picture. I think they'll probably release it around December, late November, early December, which would be really smart for it, and it would get then all the online reactions and the chatter for it, which is already at an all-time high. And I think it's doing really well in terms of word of mouth. And it hasn't released yet in China, which it is supposed to be doing. And so that is not factored into this box office yet. I mean, it is going to be the big film that releases in China before Avatar starts taking over, which we all clearly expect. I, for one, am a little miffed at Big Jim and at Taylor Swift for doing this. I think that this is a calculated capitalist move. That movie,
So much for her being a Phantom Thread fan.
yeah, so
Come
much for
on.
her giving a shit about that. I think, look, that album's getting panned left and right. She needs all the money she can get for that stupid Confederate wedding that she's going to have. But I think that the one that really makes me upset is Big Jim. Like, this could have happened any other weekend outside of this. It feels like it could have happened in August, to be fair, to get people ready for this movie. To steal those premium IMAX screens, I think is kind of like a dick move. And it's, I've had a lot of people go online and be like, well, it's fine in Lincoln Center or it's fine here. And I'm like, I'm talking about in the middle of this country. I tried to find an IMAX screen when I came back home to take my wife to see this movie. And we had to go to an IMAX screen that we then ended up finding out was a Limax screen. And so that was a bit disappointing, but like it was only at 9:45 at night. Everything else is a regular showing, regular screening. But I will say this, I looked in Austin, which has 70 millimeter screening still, and it is completely sold out for every single screening. So it is doing well in those premium formats in towns. I mean, the Vista, I keep seeing the updates over there at the Vista, as long as that print can stay healthy, of that the lines are extremely long and people are still having to get there very, very, very early. So, and they're screening that all the way until the end of October. And I do think that this will come back and forth throughout the season, but it's doing well. Smashing Machine wise, like I kind of thought that movie might have been a little bit of a hit, and it's just been hit this entire weekend.
Oh, it was forecasted to do a minimum 20 million opening. So
Yeah, and so I mean, it got pummeled. I mean, I don't think the tepid reviews of the film didn't help. There was not really a sense of urgency from people talking about it after I saw it at TIFF. There wasn't a sense of urgency really even after the Venice surprise win. And then you guys saw this, and I want to say that like sometimes the advanced screenings can be helpful and sometimes they can be hurtful. I think for One Battle, those screenings were sold out across the country for it. And then the Smashing Machine, man, if that didn't put the final nail in the coffin after you guys saw it and the online reactions of people that paid a ticket to go see that thing. And then they had to wait a week before releasing it. That was the other thing too, which was kind of stupid. Like, shouldn't you have this movie? Shouldn't you do your preview screening the week of release? Like, it seemed a bit of a mess. A24 is in a kind of a weird place right now. They're most of their films haven't done well at the box office that we thought they were going to do. They have Marty Supreme. If I Had Legs, I Can Kick You has done well at the festival circuit. Remains to be seen with general audiences. Very interesting stuff going on over there for them this year.
Well, and in that conversation is the way that we can talk about the budget for Smashing Machine versus what its box office is going to be, and that it's not the same
No,
as the budget to box office for One Battle and Warner Brothers. They are two very different studios, and A24 doing really big budget films is very, very risky for that studio because they're going to lose money on these big ticket items, which means they're going to have to get more investment money. And there's so much potential for drama and controversy about where that kind of money comes from. So it's a studio like A24 or Neon, I think should stay in their lane. Their lane is really specific of low budget films that have a lot of appeal so that the audiences can really tell the story. And the audiences are telling the story for Smashing Machine, and it's not a good one.
no, I think you're absolutely right, Eric, because they've had this problem. I mean, Ari Aster's last two films are box office disasters. They gave the Safdie brothers, both of them, these high box office, these high budgeted films that are dependent on the box office. I mean, Marty Supreme is an ultimate test, not only just for Josh
It's a big
Safdie
test.
in A24 as a studio, but it's a big one for Chalamet as well to see
Hmm.
if he can lift it up. And I will say one thing, and what is worrisome if you're an A24 person out there, it's like Leo can only do so much to get one battle. You know, it's money the way it has, and it's in a less crowded time at Christmas time is a massive crowd time, including the fact that the biggest blockbuster of the world will be out as well, still making and stomping around Pandora and making a crap ton of money. And then the Wicked fans will be out there taking up the rest of the screens. So it's just that small movie is seeming like it's going to, regardless of how good it is or how long it is, that is a completely side conversation. And from a box office standpoint, it looks like it might be heading towards disaster because that's a $70 million budget that we're looking at here. And I don't see an international draw coming anytime soon, right, Sophia?
Yeah, I don't either. I will say that it was just announced, and I unfortunately missed the ticketing because we were recording and I was, not paying attention to the ticketing window. But there will be a special screening at NYFF on Monday at 8:30, and I am wondering if that could be Marty Supreme. Tickets sold out very quickly, of course, but that could, if the film is really good, continue to build buzz for it. But that is a long window
Yeah.
between that screening and the official release. So it would be interesting to see what A24 does with that. But I mean, if they're seeing what's happening with the Smashing Machine, it could be a good play to
Build,
pick
yeah,
the other one that might be better and build the buzz around that as quickly as they can.
absolutely.
Well, and the rumor that Marty Supreme was going to be this secret screening has been around for a little while, certainly
Hmm.
before the Smashing Machine, box office and
Yeah.
cinema score numbers
Right.
came in. But it's kind of crazy that
No bragging
I
rights
mean
on this one. Yeah.
that if that is the movie that between that and One Battle, we're only getting like two non-festival releases this
Yeah.
fall and winter
Yeah.
instead of, four and five, which is I don't know. I like that better. Not everything needs a festival release.
No, not everything does. I mean, like One Battle did get the sneaky, Fantastic Fest and also kind of an unannounced or unconfirmed spot at Lincoln Center like days before the festival started.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, Marty Supreme, which we've kind of been hearing just rumors about where it's going to drop all season long. We kind of thought about that a little bit with Telluride and then obviously Venice and then it landing here makes sense. It's a hometown movie. It's completely a New York film. They were shooting all over the streets last year for this, but I don't know. I kind of hope it's not that, not for the sake, well, one, for the sake because Sophia doesn't have a ticket, but two, the fact that I'm with Eric. I like to see some of these the fall anticipation, but A24 does have a track record. I think of a lot like Iron Claw as an example of a movie that did okay at the box office, but then completely just missed because it was lost in the middle of screeners and lost in the middle of giant films at the box office. And I think these smaller films need to have a launching point and have a place of their own outside of these blockbusters. And this is not a blockbuster. This is a mid-tier drama that A24 wants to continue to make at this kind of rate. Then they're going to have to make some adjustments. But anyway, we will be monitoring the box office, not just for One Battle and not just for all these other films, but then of course all the next wave of films from the Oscar race that'll be coming out. I know Springsteen and a bunch of other films will be heading to theaters very, very soon. And we're looking forward to talking about those here as well as their chances. We're going to go over to screenplays. We haven't talked about the screenplay categories yet, but man, have these categories become the most interesting and important categories over the last couple of years. Winning these screenplay categories can really indicate whether you are a top tier contender or not, and most likely leads to a best picture win. That did happen for the case for Coda. It happened for the case of Everything Everywhere All at Once and Anora. It didn't happen for Oppenheimer, but that one director. Same for Nomadland. Also, Parasite, Green Book, it didn't happen for Shape of Water. Happened for Moonlight. And so it is a trend where it most likely or not, if you're not winning or at least in the top two in your screenplay category, you're not going to be taking home the top prize Oscar night. Sophia, I'm going to kick this over to you. I want to start with original screenplay first, because adapted screenplay seems like a two-horse race, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But original screenplay does seem open for the taking, though there does seem a couple of contenders up at the top. Like a film that I rewatched and absolutely loved at New York, and I have always and will stand for it. No, I'm just kidding. Is Sentimental Value from Joachim Trier, which is a movie that I really, really love the second go round, and I do think is the front runner in this category. But how do you see original screenplay right now as we're looking at it?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing in original screenplay is what we can maybe see with Neon's slate of international features. So, Sentimental Value, It Was Just an Accident, and The Secret Agent can all contend here. So, we could see really any mix of them appearing. I think Sentimental Value, though, just always has felt to me like a possible original screenplay winner, just because it is, I think, a movie that it just feels very written. And I mean that complimentary, not in a derogatory sense. I love the dialogue in this film. I think the way that it flows really across different languages too. And the structure of the screenplay too, I think is pretty smart throughout. So I love that as a screenplay pick. And I think it also could just signal its strength really in the best picture race as well, and really across the board. And then when we're looking, I think outside of those international contenders, and we've also, just to note, we have seen, I think, some support in screenplay categories for international features lately, I think in recent years, with surprise nominees appearing here and there, or winners like Anatomy of a Fall really dominating in screenplay that season, when I think at the beginning of the year, people might not have thought that. They thought it maybe could have gone to something that was a little bit stronger in the text or just overall. But then again, outside of those neon category or contenders, I think we really need to think about Sinners and its possibility there. I think what it does have going for it really in the screenplay category is that it does feel, I think, like a very original concept. And if people really love that movie, this could be a good place to support it. And then I'll also throw out Jay Kelly, just because I think, Noah Baumbach as a writer is someone who I could see them nominating or wanting to nominate here, just based on his previous films and I think the screenplay of that movie too. But of all of these films, I think I do have Sentimental Value still in my number one spot.
I do as well. Eric, I'm looking at your September predictions here, and they're pretty aligned with what Sophia said, but there is the aforementioned Marty Supreme sitting there at number three. And then there's a sneaky little film there at number six I want you to kind of talk about here because I do think that that's another film that is lying in the weeds and kind of is kind of interesting because I'm a little bit de deterred from what Sophia was saying there. I think Sinners has strength in a lot of categories. I do think one of the most complaints about Sinners is the screenplay. That hasn't stopped poor screenplays from getting nominated or weaker screenplays from getting nominated before. But I do think that there's going to be some vulnerability in these top categories for Sinners. We've talked about the vulnerability in director, but then there's, I think, vulnerability here as well. And that could benefit another WB title. So, Eric, kind of talk about that and where you see the top of this category right now.
Yeah, I didn't do October predictions for the screenplays, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, looking at my September, there's not really a whole lot of change. Sentimental and Sinners are absolutely one and two. I don't think there's really much debate about that. But as the season goes on, I think what we'll see is the strength of each of those films, and then looking at Academy history, where each of them have a lot of bona fides to be a winner. But yeah, looking further down, I do think it was just an accident. It was a very top tier contender. Certainly the biggest for Neon after Sentimental. But what?
I was just gonna ask you, Eric, about
Hmm.
it was just an accident, and I wanted to bring this
Yeah.
up because of everything going on with the government shutdown, everything happening here in America. Jafar
Hmm.
Panahi had to cancel his appearance. In his conversation with Martin Scorsese, Alice Tully Hall, as well as also puts it at him an extreme, most probable risk of not getting his tributes at Mill Valley, where you're at, and then of course Middleburg at the end of the month for myself. That and it's a very difficult thing to talk about outside of just the politics of it all, which are
Yeah.
devastating and complete bullshit. But then you have to talk about it from an award standpoint, and that there's these two ways of thinking about it. And I kind of want you to kind of talk about those two ways of thinking that you and I have mentioned to each other earlier in the week.
Yeah. I mean, looking at it purely from an academic perspective, and like you said, not, you know, digging into the administration of it all. A narrative for Panahi has always been something that is on the runway for this film and for him. And his inability to be able to come to the US and to speak about it, I think, and again, not to sound cynical or whatever it is, I think also works to his advantage. It actually feeds directly into the narrative of the struggle that he has had his entire career in his own home country. And now we have the United States providing a enormous obstacle and difficulty as well. And I think narratively it really is, it's a benefit. And again, I want to say that in a way that just doesn't sound, just cold and removed or whatever, but just purely from an academic standpoint, it doesn't hurt as much as it could,
No, I
I
mean, like,
think.
I mean, the more cynical take is that then it would get hurt by this, him not being able to go to these smaller places that others were going to be able to go, like the secret agent, like Huber there, who is going to be at these smaller places. I also believe Savannah is another place he's getting an award as well too. And then therefore that could be an opportunity for, like Sophia was saying, secret agent to sort of move up into the ranks as well, which is slowly losing steam, it feels like. And kind of level those two contenders out, even though clearly sentimental value is the number one priority for them across the board. But Eric, again, that number 6 spot from those September predictions. I think that that's a movie that is kind of climbing in there a little bit, with other films falling down.
Yeah, I mean, Weapons, FKA Twigs, really has a lot of potential here. And between this and Amy Madigan, I think it's really we have to be prepared and careful that, we're not necessarily talking within a bubble that feels like a possibility. It does really have to break outside of that. And because it had come out earlier, and articles were written for Amy Madigan to get in, and then it was really because of that that Weapons as a screenplay contender became a conversation, because that wasn't really happening before the push for Madigan to get in. And I've seen people that have Weapons either in or really close to Best Picture as well. I think that's a little bit crazier,
That's a
because
little
then you're
hope
looking at,
predicting. Yeah.
three Warner Brothers films, and that whole conversation we also had a little bit before too, about how many films a studio can get in. But yeah, I think there's clearly a a path for Weapons to get in here, uh to be such an interesting niche contender. But the idea of having two horror films in the top five is kind of crazy, and
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm prepared to pull that trigger
Mhm.
on a AK-47 or AR-15 or whatever, dreams float around in the night sky. Uh, but we'll see. I think it's very close, and I think having it at six is a very safe place for me to have it. And I like it at number six because I can't get in trouble with it, and it's a Goldilocks place for it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is. I think there's a lot of potential, but the caveat of two horror films uh, in the top five is right now enough to keep it out.
Sophia, I was looking at your reaction about Weapons there.
Yeah.
Um, I don't believe that you probably have this up there,
I think
and
this
don't
is
think this is
pure hope dicting. I'm
okay.
sorry.
All
I
right.
really do. I just think like this is one of those I'm even worried about Amy Madigan and supporting actress.
Okay.
Um I feel like this is one of those things where it in screenplay also just feels odd to me. Like I think like with Marty Supreme in the mix, or I don't know, a lot of the movies that we've already talked about, it just feels like screenplay would not be the place where they would recognize Weapons if they were going to. It feels like makeup or something like that where they might throw this film something. I don't know.
No, that's fair. I do think though
Completely fair.
we've seen most of the other contenders in this category though, and we will do a complete wrap up of New York next week. But seeing knowing Secret Agent is falling behind, Rental Family is my comments on that are well made that that movie is shit. And then there's a House of Dynamite, which is like I had a very mixed reaction at New York. And we will know by next week about is this thing on, which Bradley is much like PTA a favorite of getting nominated at the Academy, but we're skeptical a little bit of that film because we've seen the trailer, we know what it's kind of about, and it's it doesn't seem like an Oscar film, but who knows, right? Who knows? And we obviously haven't seen Mario Supreme, so what if that movie isn't what it's supposed to be? Then there's a spot open as well. I agree with Sophia. Jake Kelly would actually be my number two in the category just because of Baumbach's presence as a nominee before, being a more Oscar friendly film, being less of a genre film as well too, being a movie about Hollywood, being a movie about and also being from Netflix. And Netflix gets a ton of nominations, and so it just makes total sense. And they've sort of pivoted to that movie because that movie has had really good screenings at New York and had really good screenings at Telluride, and has kind of been ascending rather than other pictures that feel like in the middle or descending for them. And I think sentimental value is right up there. I have Sinners in there for now. I So I think that Weapons is kind of perfectly right where Erik has it in the 6 to 10 range, and I think it's going to be around in the conversation. That all depends on if Zach Cregers does any conversations and actually opens up and allows other points of view about that film to happen, and then therefore have an interesting dialogue about your film, because PTA will be doing that, Ryan Coogler will be doing that. Will Zach Cregers do that? Remains to be seen. And will it be Amy Madigan kind of being the one that carries most of that conversation, and then she's just Madigan in the makeup, like you were mentioning, Sophia. The movie I would like to kind of talk, like to just recommend or kind of throw in there, that's done really well at all the festivals and has done well since Berlin, is Blue Moon. And Sony Pictures Classics, it's a very talky screenplay, play like movie. And I think that, we've seen the tribute for Ethan Hawke. That movie played extremely well again in New York, kind of a hometown film, right, Sophia? And I think that movie could be in the 6 to 10 conversation just because of the power of Sony Pictures Classics. The one problem I have though about it, and this is the same with Nouvelle Vague, is that Linklater did not write these screenplays, so his name will not be attached to them. So it would have to be, just off the power of the film. I do think that this is Sony Pictures Classics' best chance of getting into the race, along with Ethan Hawke, who is slowly kind of moving up in my actor predictions at this point because he's so fantastic and he's got a television show going on at the same time and he's everywhere. And he's great in Q&As as well too with Linklater. And of the two Linklater films, I think this is the strongest one. I want to move over to adapted screenplay, if we can talk about that real quick. And I want to just talk about the fact that our two best picture contenders are battling each other, one after another here in this category, with one battle after another in Hamnet. So those are very locked in. Erik has seen Hamnet now 3 times. He saw it twice in 2 days. So I don't know actually how Erik's still here and not like in shambles, just like all over the floor. But we have 3 other spots here that are kind of wide open here. So I'd like Erik just quickly to kind of talk about where you're seeing these other 3 at this moment, outside of One Battle at 1 and then Hamnet at 2, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Yeah, and those have not changed. One Battle One and Hamnet Two, I think, is really the case for these two movies in several categories, and certainly here. I feel very good that Wake Up Dead Man is in this top 5. The previous 2 have gotten in. This is a great category for Netflix, but they have a shit ton of movies here. They have Nouvelle Vague, they have Frankenstein, but I think the secret contender is actually Train Dreams.
Yes.
I think Train Dreams is the secret contender for Netflix overall. The movie that was quiet and had an early start in Sundance, and then their focus was on all these big titles, the Jay Kelly and Frankenstein, and I think it's Train Dreams that might be the sneaky favorite at the end of the day.
Yeah, like a kind of an All Quiet on the Western Front sort of feel, where it's like these
Kinda, yeah.
bigger
Mhm.
titles, and then this movie kind of sweeps in because of audience reactions. That'll be at AFI, where you and Sophia will be able to see it, I believe, for the first time.
Mhm.
And
I'm actually seeing it in I'm seeing it tomorrow.
oh, okay. Well, then never mind. Erik's seeing it before, but
I'll see it there.
yeah. But Sophia will be seeing it soon. I saw it at TIFF. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it would be my pick of the adapted films to make it in outside of Wake Up Dead Man. But Sophia, I'm curious then about other films outside of Netflix, as well as also I want to ask you, I think the most important question I can ask here, which is that if One Battle and Hamnet are 1 and 2 in this category, does Hamnet have to win this over One Battle in order to win Best Picture?
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Because I think the screenplay is Hamnet's strength, whereas the direction is One Battle's strength.
Hmm.
So I think if you're Hamnet is known as an adaptation, and I think One Battle is also known as is being inspired by, right? I'll
Hmm.
say. So if they're really thinking about this in terms of, the adaptation, I think, if Hamnet were to win Best Picture, it would have to win here. There's no
Yeah.
question. Like it couldn't lose this category. This is where it has to happen. I think, it's possible that we could see something like Oppenheimer with one battle winning picture and director, and you get something different here in screenplay, but I personally don't think that's going to happen because I think that Nolan isn't known as a writer and PTA is known as a writer director. I think
Mhm.
that it will be really recognizing him for the whole package here. So Hamnet, I mean, it needs this one, I think, to win the big one.
Mhm.
Um, Otherwise, though, other contenders, I am curious what happens with Begonia because even though Hamnet is clearly Focus's best film this season for awards, they are still putting a lot behind Begonia, taking it to tons of festivals, having I don't remember what they called it, but it was basically like a program of a few films that include Begonia and Promising Young Woman to highlight
The Big
Begonia.
Lebowski as
So
well.
yes, so they're doing a lot with it, I think, to try to really stage it as another big contender. I just don't really think that it has that kind of strength, but Focus clearly believes in that too. So I don't know that. I think, it's written by Will Tracy. It could appear here, but I think Train Dreams has a much better shot at popping up.
I agree with both of you about Train Dreams. I have that in my five as well, along with Wake Up Dead Man Hamnet and One Battle After Another. I don't have Begonia in there. I think that will just be too abrasive of a film for the Academy, much like Kinds of Kindness or Killing of a Sacred Deer. I do not think that it is the Poor Things, even The Lobster of this. And but I also think too, No Other Choice is another interesting film as well in this
Yeah,
category,
for sure.
because it doesn't have to compete with its other neon contenders, and so that really helps it here and be able to stand out amongst the pack, and be able to just kind of if it's gonna get a nomination, it actually feels like it would get it in this category
I agree.
more than anything else. Oh, sorry, Sophie, you
It's
were
I
gonna
mean,
say.
it's
it's not getting a
also
Writers Guild nomination, but
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's not getting
right.
that. But yeah,
I was just thinking it's interesting to compare No Other Choice and Begonia because I think No Other Choice is far more successful as a
yes,
satire
yeah,
too and tackles some similar themes. So if they want to kind of, I don't know, scratch that itch necessarily, No Other Choice
Hmm.
is right there and a perfect contender for that.
I totally,
It's like the Weapons Sinners thing. It's like, all right, we're not going to put two of these movies in here. We'll pick one.
I agree. I don't know. I do not believe in Wicked for Good in this category. The first one did not get in there, so that was. I'm just looking at your predictions, Eric, from 6 to 10. It was number 10.
Oh, I know. It's
Yeah,
only there because it's pretty bleak.
yeah, it's pretty bleak. I would say, don't look out for Springsteen because those guys have been just doing those Q&As. Middleburg will have the author of the novel there as a Q&A participant, and so they are going to try their damnedest to get that thing in as many places as possible, and most likely will. But also I just think the sneakiness and also the I think a really well written screenplay and adaptation is from Amazon MGM. I think Hedda is a sneaky contender here, and as Nina Haas and Nia DaCosta and Tessa Thompson are going to be talking about that film throughout most of the small circuits here, people will start seeing that film. I believe, is it at AFI? I don't remember if it is or it isn't.
No,
Um,
because it'll already be
It'll
released.
already be released. But it is their kind of main priority of the season two. And when they focus, no, but when they really do focus on something as their main priority, they've done pretty well, I think. Like last year with Nickel Boys and Licorice Pizza before. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this is in like sort of conversations as well. Because also the fact that Netflix has 4 of a 10 that could eat a lot at each other in terms of what
Hmm.
is the one that rises above. We're assuming that it would be Wake Up Dead Man, but there's no real there's no real conclusion to that as well yet either. Though that movie's playing all the festival circuits, all the small little festivals, even though I didn't think it would, it is, and which is a smart move for it. But I agree with Sophia. I think that one battle after another is going to win this category because it is such a crazy, loose, but also very personal adaptation of Vineland. And it does go back to the old "There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men" battle a little bit, where it's like the loose adaptation versus the more buttoned down, like straight adaptation as well. But I think that one battle's just the stronger film. Erik, are you in sort of agreements as well at this time?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think we also need to fix the Belfast licorice pizza situation and come correct and do the right
Please.
thing.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I totally agree. Focus. Sorry, they have other chances to win Oscars. It's just probably at this point not this one, but still a long season. We can't, as much as we have been predicting this, me and Sophia have been predicting this all along. It's still a long, long season to go. We're going to wrap that up here. I think that it's a good place to stop. Sophia, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim. That is my rendezvous point typically. You can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Sophia Sim, and you can find reviews, some fun interviews coming, and more at Awards Watch.
She's also at every screening of One Battle After Another in the greater New York
Yes,
area. So if you
come
see
find
her,
me or
come find
don't.
her or don't, or just see the damn movie and leave her, let her be.
Yeah, go see the movie. Go see it multiple times.
Yes. Erik, same stuff.
You can find me reaching my hand out to Noah Jupe at the Globe, as well as um, at Awards Watch on socials and awards_watch on Twitter. And yes, newsletter, let's see, podcasts, all of it. Yes. Join in the fun.
Join in the fun. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterbox, Blue Sky at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find all my work here at awardswatch.com. We all have New York Film Festival reviews, and we will have the podcast next week to talk about that as well and kind of wrap up our coverage there before we get into the small festivals, and then AFI before we're almost done with festival season. If you like podcasts, we got the Director Watch podcast to release on Thursday, and this is the last Ozu episode this week. We were talking about An Autumn Afternoon. Really great summation and cap off to that series. Had a blast doing that with Jay. Please go ahead and listen to that, and then you can also find out at the end of that episode who our next or whom our next filmmakers are going to be discussed on Director Watch. iTunes, Spotify, 5-star reviews were greatly appreciated. While you're on the website, like Erik said, please sign up for the newsletter. It's not hard. You sign up for it. It's the best place to get all the news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, everything sent to you all in one place. He's been remembering it. So if you guys would just sign up for it, you're going to get it twice a week. And that's just a great thing to get. Next week, we'll be back. We'll be talking about the New York Film Festival. We'll be wrapping all that up and getting into the smaller regional festivals. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.